You know, the election happened in 2016, and there was so much overt racism. I'd always known it was there, but to have it come out so openly and almost as though it was now permitted and acceptable made me so distressed that I was paralyzed. I couldn't write in my novel because it seemed to be trivial. It seemed, inconsequential to what was happening in the country. And I needed to escape this divisiveness, this 24/7, rant from both sides. And I went into nature, which is something that I've always loved. But I decided to take up drawing and nature journaling. So that was in 2016 at the age of 64. And there was a guy named John Mearlaws who had these workshops. And so that's what I started doing. It wasn't just with the idea that you would draw and you'd draw a circle and then an oval and you'd create this bird. It was really about what the anatomy, the structure of the bird was related to and what the bird did, what the species was doing. If I were going to draw a deer versus a cougar, the placement of the eyes was significant to what both of these creatures needed their eyes for, prey, predator. And so it was about everything. It was not simply a drawing class. One of the things John Mearlaws said to get us to be more involved with what we were seeing, he said, when you see a bird, try to imagine the life force within it. And that was like bingo. As a writer, what that said to me was, be the bird, which is what I have to do when I'm writing a novel. I have to be the character. And so I understood that now what I was looking at was much more complete. This life of the bird, the context of the bird, not simply a bird and having to draw separate parts. But it also drew me into nature, and especially watching birds, become the bird, to feel the bird's fear, the bird's need to survive, what it's noticing and why, what it's eating, what it must do to eat within 24 hours. And that was part of being the bird, feeling that life force, which can be gone in an instant. One thing I learned about feeling the life of the bird is that the lives of birds they're very tenuous. 75% of the birds never make it to adulthood. You see these cute little birds out there, most of them are not going to be alive before they become adults. Same with hawks and owls and all that. So the birds became much more precious to me, knowing how fragile they were, and at the same time, very strong and smart and clever in so many ways. I'm speaking for these birds in my journal. I sometimes would do cartoons and I'd say, where's Jimmy Jr.? Jimmy Jr. died, or some human came out and killed the bird, and Jimmy Jr. was actually a dummy bird hung upside down. But, I would be this unreliable narrator in my journal, making up things. I would ask questions that were very naive. So I was the unreliable narrator for these birds. And that's something we think about in fiction, the unreliable narrator who could either be lying or crazy or ignorant. And that's who I was. I was the ignorant, unreliable narrator, which was good. Because when you approach nature not knowing things, your mind is open to mystery, curiosity, discovery. If you already know it, or you think you know it, you just closed off a lot of paths to finding out some pretty cool things. With everything in nature, there's a story. And that's what I was always searching for, just like in a novel. When you write a novel, over time you've seized upon these ideas that you want to explore. often having to do with crisis or contradictions, moral dilemmas. And this is part of the creation of a novel or a short story. And similarly, in doing a nature journal, writing about these birds or drawing them, I am attracted to looking at the situation, the story behind what's happening. One of the differences, though, in the book, the Backyard Bird Chronicles, is that I'm doing a vignette a day. So it's not a whole novel. And that's a huge difference because I'm not trying to carry, a jumble of 1,000 pages in rough draft all the way toward a finish line that remains a mirage. I get to just notice what's happening day by day and writing about that. But it grows, just as with a novel. My understanding of the birds and the situations grows, especially as the seasons change. The weather changes, and suddenly the behavior is different. The seasons are changing. Suddenly some of these birds are going to migrate, and they're doing all kinds of things to get ready. So in that sense, the birds as characters are ones that I have to come to understand better and better over the years in different contexts and with different needs.